Hey, night owls. Welcome, and thank you for joining me on another late-night history journey. It means a lot that you're here, listening in the quiet hours. Feel free to drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. I always love hearing from fellow night owls around the world. As we settle in, if you find yourself enjoying these gentle voyages through time, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps keep these nocturnal adventures going. Tonight, I have a special tale to share with you. We're traveling back to the Renaissance, to the world of master craftsmen and powerful patrons in one remarkable city. So, fluff up your pillows, close your eyes if you like, and relax. Let's drift off to the 15th century Florence, where art and ambition intertwine under the Medici's family's guiding hand. Welcome to the Medici artisanry. Take a moment to get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights or turn on a cozy fan. Let the day's worries fade. In tonight's story, we journey back to the year 1459 in Florence, Italy, exploring how a wealthy banker named Cosimo de' Medici nurtures artisans and shapes a Renaissance city. You won't be in the scene. You're a listener safe in your bed. But as you listen, you might picture the narrow Florence streets or the flicker of lamplight on workshop walls. Tonight, we'll gently wander through bustling markets and quiet chapels, through workshops and palaces, learning how craft and culture blossomed in Medici Florence. No need to worry about remembering details. Just let the historical rhythms lull you. And don't be surprised if you drift in and out of sleep. That's okay. I'll keep telling the story at a calm pace. Now, take a slow breath in and out. Our journey begins. By the mid-15th century, Florence is a city humming with craftsmanship by day and falling peaceful by night. As you listen, notice the city's heartbeat, its guilds, the trade associations that organize every craft and trade. In Florence, nearly every skilled artisan belongs to a guild, from silk weavers to stonemasons. These guilds run the show in commerce and even help govern the Republic. Imagine the clang of blacksmiths' hammers and the whir of weavers' looms during daylight. The guilds set strict standards, ensuring that Florence's textiles are lustrous, its goldwork precise, and its paintings vibrant. Their quality control is legendary. Sloppy work won't pass here. This dedication to craft has made Florence one of the richest cities in Europe. By night, however, the workshops fall silent. The shop fronts close, and a calm settles over the Arno River, flowing through the city. You can almost hear your own footsteps echo on the stone streets if you imagine strolling past shuttered stalls. The scent of dyes and leather from the day's labour still hangs faintly in the air. Florence's prosperity rests on these artisans' shoulders. Wool cloth from distant England is finished here by skilled dyers and tailors. Silk threads, carefully woven by guild craftsmen, become luxurious fabrics sought by princes. Even the city's magnificent cathedral dome, the Duomo, owes its existence to guild patronage. The Wool Merchants' Guild funded its construction and hired the genius architect Filippo Brunelleschi decades earlier. In Florence, art and trade walk hand in hand. Each morning, carpenters, cobblers, painters, and metalworkers open their shops, contributing to an urban symphony of industry. But Florence isn't only about business. It's proudly a republic, governed, in theory, by its citizens and guild representatives rather than kings. In this city of merchants, flaunting wealth too boldly is frowned upon. A modest, civic-minded spirit is valued, at least on the surface. Many here remember that arrogance can topple the mighty, and indeed, behind the scenes of this republic, a very wealthy family is learning to wield influence with a careful, almost invisible touch. As you relax deeper, consider how a family of bankers might guide a city of craftsmen without ever wearing a crown. Historians still argue whether Florence's flourishing was driven more by its free republic spirit or by the strategic generosity of one family's deep pockets. Perhaps it's a bit of both. We'll explore that balance tonight. For now, the moonlit streets of 1459 remain quiet, giving us a gentle space to reflect on how commerce and creativity have made Florence shine. Up ahead, beyond the sleeping workshops, stands a certain family palace. Its silhouette massive against the starry sky, and its story is about to unfold. Decades before 1459, Florence had already begun to slip under the steady guidance of Cosimo de' Medici, a banker with a talent for politics and patronage. As you listen, imagine a shrewd yet soft-spoken man in plain woolen clothes, more at home counting ledgers than swinging swords. Cosimo was born in 1389, son of Giovanni de' Medici, the founder of the Medici Bank. Through banking, the Medici family amassed great wealth and became respected in Florence and across Europe. By 1430, Cosimo had inherited his father's fortune and expanded the bank's reach to Rome, Venice, Milan, London, and beyond. Gold florins clink in Cosimo's chests, and political influence follows naturally. It's said the Medici Bank grew to be the largest and most respected in Europe, with branches spread far and wide. Cosimo's clerks could move money across borders as easily as a merchant ships silks. This wealth, in turn, quietly brought him friends in Florence's government. After all, in a republic, it never hurts to have the richest man on your side. Yet Cosimo's ascent wasn't without bumps. In 1433, rival aristocrats, led by the Albizzi family, decided this banker had grown too powerful. They accused Cosimo of all manner of political meddling and managed to have him imprisoned in Florence's Palazzo Vecchio. For a moment, it looked like our mild-mannered banker might lose everything, perhaps even his life. But Cosimo de' Medici was not one to panic. Instead of plotting revenge or inciting street fights, he stayed calm and used what leverage he had. Bribing the jailers? Whispering reason to allies? The details are hazy, but what we do know is that he turned a death sentence into exile. Cosimo agreed to leave Florence quietly rather than plunge the city into violence. It was a wise, patient move, one of many that earned him a reputation for prudence. Better a peaceful exile than a bloody homecoming. You can almost hear him reason. And so Cosimo went to Venice, taking his bank and fortune with him. In Venice, Cosimo waited. Back in Florence, however, his absence caused a crisis no one expected. With the Medici bank gone, credit dried up. Loans vanished. Businesses struggled. Within just a year, the flight of capital from Florence grew so dire that the government had to revoke Cosimo's exile. Even his enemies grudgingly realized that banishing your richest financer isn't great for the economy. Its acquired humorous image, proud Florentine officials, hats in hand, effectively saying, "Dear Cosimo, about that exile, we miss your money. I mean your presence." Indeed, historians note that by 1434, the city invited him back, having learned the cost of losing the Medici bank's gold. Cosimo returned home to Florence in triumph, while the Albizzi and other rivals packed their bags instead. One observer quipped that Cosimo left Florence a bookkeeper and returned a king, though without any crown, of course. Historians still argue whether this moment marked the end of Florence's true republic or the beginning of a Medici monarchy in all but name. What's clear is that 1434 began the Medici era. Cosimo de' Medici would spend the next 30 years as the unofficial head of the Florentine state, always careful to appear just first among equals rather than a tyrant. How did he manage that balancing act? Cosimo mastered the art of ruling through influence rather than titles. He held no lofty office beyond some routine appointments, yet every councilman knew his words carried weight. If Florence were an orchestra, Cosimo was the conductor in the shadows, keeping time with a gentle motion of his hand, and maybe the occasional distribution of loans to ensure loyalty. He made sure to keep the old republic forms intact. Councils met. Guild representatives voted. But somehow decisions favoured Medici interests. One could call it a quiet puppet mastery, though a kindly one. He even instituted changes to prevent the factional infighting that had caused his exile, subtly tweaking the laws and committees so that his allies filled key positions. It's as if Cosimo were pruning a garden, trimming back the thorns, his rivals, and nurturing the blossoms, his supporters. This peaceful consolidation of power led some to dub him the uncrowned monarch of Florence. Yet outwardly he lived simply, spoke softly, and walked the streets without pomp. In fact, Cosimo's humility was strategic. He famously said, "Envy is a plant one should never water." These words guided him. He avoided flashy displays of wealth that might incite jealousy. No gilded carriage rides or extravagant feasts to rub in the public's face. Cosimo knew better. Instead, he cultivated an image of a sober, responsible citizen, all while deftly pulling strings behind the scenes. The result? Florence enjoyed stability, and Cosimo enjoyed influence. A fair trade, perhaps, in a city that prized order. And with stability secured, he could turn his mind to something that gave him even greater pleasure than politics, spending his fortune on art, architecture, and learning. Back in our gentle night of 1459, imagine Cosimo de' Medici as an aging man of 70, reflecting on decades of patronage. He has poured unimaginable sums into his city's cultural life. In fact, he and his heirs would ultimately spend over 600,000 gold florins on public works, art, and charity. An almost princely sum, roughly $500 million in today's dollars. It was said later that this was enough to buy a kingdom. But Cosimo chose to buy beauty and goodwill instead. For 50 years, I have done nothing else but earn money and spend money, and spending money gives me greater pleasure than earning it. Cosimo once admitted, you can almost hear the dry smile in his voice as he says it. Indeed, this banker discovered a joyful truth. Investing in art and culture felt far better than tallying profits. So invest he did, with both civic pride and perhaps a touch of calculated politics. Florence benefited immensely. Under Cosimo's patronage, artisans and artists flourished. He sponsored painters, sculptors, architects, scholars, anyone who could enrich the city's soul. This wasn't just handing out charity. Cosimo carefully commissioned works that would reflect glory on Florence, and, not coincidentally, on the Medici family. By day, money flowed from his counting house into the hands of painters and masons. By night, one imagines Cosimo sleeping soundly beneath a freshly painted fresco, content that his money was weaving Florentine greatness. Among the beneficiaries of Cosimo's largesse were some names you might recognize. The sculptor Donatello, the painter-monk Fra Angelico, the architect Michelozzo, and many more. Cosimo became a confidant and friend to these creatives. He didn't dabble in art himself. No, he wasn't sketching in a studio. But he had an eye for talent and a heart that delighted in creation. Florence, in turn, blossomed into the cradle of the Renaissance, a place where genius found both financing and freedom. Take Donatello's bronze David, for example. This slender, graceful sculpture of the biblical hero was commissioned by Cosimo for the Medici home. When it was completed, a boyish David posed triumphantly, wearing nothing but a shepherd's hat and boots. It became the first freestanding nude male statue created since ancient times. Imagine the stir that caused in conservative 15th century Florence. A nude bronze youth in an era when such a thing hadn't been seen for 1,000 years. Some prudish Florentines likely raised their eyebrows or covered their eyes, but Cosimo was proud of the piece. He placed Donatello's David in the courtyard of Palazzo Medici, where invited guests could marvel at its classical beauty. Whispers spread that perhaps the Medici considered themselves Florence's defenders, like David defending Israel. But Cosimo only smiled. He was content to let the artwork speak subtly to his family's role in the city. And if the sight of that nude figure gave a few traditionalists the vapours, well, a little artistic provocation didn't hurt. One imagines that statue gave the Medici grandchildren a giggle too, sneaking a peek at David's unabashed Renaissance confidence. Donatello's workshop wasn't the only one bustling thanks to Cosimo. In churches and chapels across Florence, artists laid fresh paint on plaster under his patronage. Fra Angelico, a devout friar and talented painter, found a generous sponsor and friend in Cosimo. At San Marco, a Dominican monastery in the city, Cosimo funded a complete renovation and expansion. Not just building the monks' new quarters, but also hiring Fra Angelico to adorn their walls with gentle frescoes of angels and gospel scenes. By doing so, Cosimo achieved multiple aims. He beautified a holy place, earning pious gratitude, gave honest work to artisans, and quietly showcased Medici piety to the public. It's a pattern you'll see often with him. His commission served both the public good and the Medici image. Grim comedy footnote, Fra Angelico's paintings were so serene that one monk joked they made the cloisters too peaceful. Brothers were dozing off at prayer. If true, that would make Fra Angelico an accidental sleep therapist of the 15th century, much like we're attempting here tonight. Historians still argue whether Cosimo's massive patronage sprang from genuine love of art or a crafty bid for power. In the stillness of a midnight lecture like this, perhaps we can allow that both motivations mingled. Cosimo did love beauty and knowledge, that we know from his own letters. But he was also shrewd. Every florin he spent on a painting or a statue was a florin not spent on a private army or bribes. And yet it often earned him even more loyalty. A painted chapel here, a public park there. These were gifts that won hearts, built prestige, and made Florence shine. It was soft power, in the most literal sense. Power wielded through soft brushstrokes and gentle marble curves, rather than swords and statues. As you sink deeper into relaxation, picture how these works transformed the city. By the late 1450s, visitors remarked that Florence seemed an earthly paradise, filled with art treasures at every turn. And behind many of those treasures lay the hand of Cosimo de' Medici, writing the checks. Let's pause outside a grand building on Florence's Via Larga, today called Via Cavour, in the cool night air of 1459. The massive bulk of Palazzo Medici looms quietly. This is Cosimo's home, or rather, his family's palace, completed just a few years ago. By day, it's bustling with people coming and going, but now it stands, lantern-lit and still. Take in its presence. Ground-floor walls of rough-hewn stone, like a fortress, with lighter, more refined stonework on the upper floors. The palace looks solid, secure, yet not overly ostentatious on the outside. That's by Cosimo's design. In fact, the great architect Brunelleschi, famous for the Duomo's dome, once drew up a plan for an even grander Medici palace, full of showy flourishes. Cosimo quietly rejected it, saying, "Envy is a plant one should never water." He feared a too extravagant palace would stir resentment among his fellow Florentines. Legend claims Brunelleschi was so frustrated by the rejection that he smashed the model of his design in a fit of pique. One can imagine Cosimo patting the genius on the shoulder, apologizing for the bruised ego, and then hiring a trusted younger architect, Michelozzo, to build something more modest, but still splendid. The result is this very palazzo before us, austere on the outside, magnificent within. Even now in the night time, a couple of torches by the doorway cast light on the street. Notice along the base of the palace, there's a long stone bench running the length of the facade. This isn't just decoration, it's functional. Cosimo cleverly had a bench built into his palace for the public. By day, any weary citizen can sit there, taking refuge from the Tuscan sun in the cool shade of the palace's huge overhanging cornice. It's a humble sort of gift to the people of Florence, a place to rest, free of charge, literally on the Medici's doorstep. Can you see the genius? A labourer might pause there and think kindly of the Medici, who offer him a seat and shade. It placates those who might harbour resentment. As one chronicler noted, in modern terms, it's a bit of savvy, public relations built into stone. Instead of a like and subscribe button, Cosimo gave out benches and public art. The message? We're rich, but we're here for the city. Have a seat, neighbour. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey through Renaissance Florence. The story may fade now, but its calm glow remains with you, guiding you toward rest. In your own life, remember that even the smallest acts of support, a kind word, a shared skill, can spark beauty in the world, much as Cosimo's patronage did long ago. Now, let your mind drift like a gentle Arno current. You are safe. You are relaxed. And you've earned this rest. Sweet dreams.